right, so this just arrived a couple weeks ago. This is the new Basil Hayden 10-year-old. And the interesting part about this is that it's still 80 proof. So I would have loved to see 100 proof 10-year, but I know that the sort of the signature of Basil Hayden is the lower proof. The regular Basil Hayden years ago used to actually have an 8-year age statement on it. That came off several years ago because of supply demand. Now it's sort of premiumized, but this is the Basil Hayden 10-year, a little bit of a different color on the package, but still 80 proof. So really curious as to what the extra years in oak do to something that's really meant to be light and easy to drink and a very approachable bourbon, maybe for some folks who aren't regular bourbon drinkers. So I will say this, it's got one of the best noses that I've smelled in a while. I mean, it's really a lifted rose, orange essence. There's sort of a kind of an almond butter, sugar cookie, there's kind of a vanilla wafer thing going on. So it's this really interesting combination mix between these like higher fruit notes, maybe even like a little cherry in there. So I'm really picking up the essence of like an old fashioned. The orange, highly lifted, a little bit of tropical fruit, and then the cherry, kind of that maraschino cherry aroma, mixed with that vanilla wafer, and maybe the almond, maybe a little bit of nuttiness from like just the extra years in oak. So that's sort of what we got going on here. Really, really pleasant, beautiful nose. And maybe a malty note too. This is the high rye. So, I mean, honestly, this is like finding a 10-year-old old granddad, the 80 proof one. Amazing fruit. Yeah, it is like a liquid old fashioned. It's very interesting. It's got that orange note. It's got that cherry note. Wow. And then that vanilla, and then the oak. You don't get it much on the nose. Maybe a little bit of that almond essence on the nose sort of shows you that there's going to be oak on the palate, but the oak really comes out on the finish. Touch of leather, a touch of that kind of oak spice. It's real fresh though. It's not overpowering at all. At 80 proof, it's extremely drinkable, but it's that really interesting combination of a very gentle, pleasant, easy, approachable bourbon whiskey with some extra aging, a little more oak, a little more spice kind of layered on top of it. So it's a relatively complex whiskey, even for an 80 proof, and certainly I think commands this price point. I would suggest putting it in an old fashioned. I think the problem with that though is that it's only 80 proof. You know, you're just not going to get, after 5, 6, 7 minutes in that ice cube, it's really going to be watered down. But if you want to find a really super premium bourbon for somebody who maybe is not a huge bourbon drinker or doesn't like barrel proof, then this would be a great choice because it's going to have a little bit of age, a little higher price, but it's still going to be extremely approachable. And for somebody who likes old fashions and maybe wants to drink 2 or 3 as opposed to 1, this would be great because by the time you throw an ice cube in it, even an ounce or 2, it's going to be down to 70, 60, 50 proof relatively quickly. So that is a very interesting bottle of bourbon, and love the nose. Wish it were 100 proof, certainly, but I understand where they're coming from. So there you go, Basil Hayden 10-year. Cheers.